Hello and thank you for joining us. This is Conversations here on NTA Network. We have an interesting topic to discuss today in the room, and I'll leave our lady panelists to introduce themselves today.
My name is Enel Bong, and it's nice to join you here, Nike. Thank you.
My name is Halima Okwaleye. It's nice being here.
And I'm Halima Usman. I'm a writer, a poet, and an advocate for children and for literacy, for especially internally displaced persons.
Oh, awesome. Well, we're going to be talking about literacy, and it's going to cut across all boards, the old and the young. But before we delve into that topic itself, we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back after this.
I don't think in gender boxes at all. I just get on with it.
A man that would dare to ask the wife, who do you think you are? That is a real man.
In fact, our husbands are our firstborns. The husband needs more attention than even the children.
It's not only about work, it's not only about family. They need to take the time to look after themselves, and we don't do that.
They took my money. I paid every fees. I never asked to be hoisted as a governor. I wanted to be allowed to go out there and contest for the position of governorship candidate first.
There's nothing greater than looking back and seeing that while you were aspiring, you were able to inspire others.
Empowered to women. Yes, we need to have more women, more multitaskers around Nigeria to get Nigeria working.
Definitely.
Our topic today in the conversation room is literacy in Nigeria. And Halima, since that happens to be your baby, you're very passionate about it. You're an advocate and you work with children most times. Yeah. Why don't you help us with some of the basics, the terms?
Okay. I don't know. Let me start from literacy and education. They are they are synonymous anyway. We always interchange them, but they have some difference. Okay. Literacy is the ability to read and write, understand, be able to interpret.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Education is the process of learning that requires an instructor and the students. Okay. But I want to put it this way. I always love to tell myself this. We always talk about government doing a lot of things about education, but I want to say this. I say it to myself. I stand to be corrected anyway. The government have a responsibility to educate us, while we have a responsibility to make ourselves literate. Okay. Because literacy does not just stop by you going to class to learn, to study. Many a times we go to school. A lot of us have that issue. We went to school, we've read, immediately you finish the semester, you finish the term, you've forgotten what you studied. Yeah. So it's incumbent on each one of us to go beyond the normal reading and writing to understanding. And our literacy does not just involve reading and writing and understanding and interpreting. It also goes, especially in this time of technology, your ability to use the recent or most current technologies in understanding, in interpreting, in communicating, like the internet facility, the ATM, the laptops, everything, every other thing. So you can have the ability to read and write, to do calculations, arithmetics, but you do not understand how to use the internet facility, the latest devices, you're still illiterate in some aspects. Okay. So it goes beyond the conventional reading and writing. If you look at the UNESCO interpretation, it goes beyond that. We are now in the, and then it's a continuum learning. Okay. That's why I am impressed by the SDGs, because if you look at SDG 4, 5, it talks about continuous learning. So it's not just because I've gone to school, I have the first degree, I have a master's, I have a PhD, that stops. No. Literacy is updating and upgrading yourself on a daily basis. What is happening in whatever field. And I want to say that I always tell my children, know a little about everything, but at least master one or two.
Okay.
So you must be literate in that field, which is your field of calling, but at least also be literate a little about every other thing that is happening around you as human being, about the environment, about the climate, about everything. So this is all, literacy is all encompassing.
Okay, but you talked about your children and making sure, being master of a few things, one or two things, and then how do you encourage them to know about every other thing? Is it by TV, by books? I'm just asking about your own personal, what works for you or what works for you and your children?
Well, I do a lot of things. Again, it's not just about me, it's also about the children.
Okay.
Because I won't want to impose my own learning style on them.
Yeah.
So you have to know what works for them too. You don't have to just say, okay, because I do a lot of reading, I'm a writer. So I can't force it on my children. I have to also understand what they love doing. My daughter, my eldest daughter, loves to read. She reads a lot. She reads virtually every novel she can find. I remember the other day, the father was like, this novel, isn't it too big for her? 300 pages. What did she? I said, it's good. In those good old days while we're growing, you read a lot of books. And mind you, by reading alone, it exposes you. It broadens your knowledge. You know, but these days, because we are so carried away with the Facebook thing, with the likes and the dislikes and all of these things, we are not reading. People are reading actually, but we're not reading the right things. So that is why our ability of understanding is still shallow or limited. But reading books is great. So that's one way, reading, and not just reading, allow the children, give them book, come and read. No, once in a while, sit with them, please read. What have you read? What is the storyline? What is the storyline? What do you understand what you're reading? What are the lessons you've picked from it? And I also encourage my children to write their own stories. After reading maybe something, write your own story. In fact, I do that a lot. I also I have a lot of painting stuffs. Write your story, draw your own, do whatever you need to do to improve yourself. So if it means you watching television, I'm also very careful as a parent. What kind of thing are you watching on television? So that, or if you're using the devices, my children have a tablet, but I always occasionally check what they're reading or what they're looking at there, so that you don't just get too carried away, believing that, okay, because I do a lot of other works with people outside, that doesn't mean that my home is safe. I have to check, I have to follow through with them. And then, like, my last daughter always has this funny way of saying, Mommy, please come and read with me. And sometimes I say, no, I don't want to read, go and read on your own. But once in a while, even I'm tired, I try to force myself. If I don't want to read with her on her bed, I say, okay, let's read before you go to bed. You know, sometimes it happens, but these are the things I try to do to encourage my children to read. Because again, reading is important. Reading, this is self-education. You will learn, you will know a lot of things by just mere reading, even if it is a novel, newspaper, whatever. You will see that you will be able to stand out, because you suddenly become knowledgeable about a lot of things. So self-education, I think, is best, or self-literacy is best. We can't wait on the government to do everything for us, like we always want to put the blame on the government.
Sorry to cut you. I want to know, when you say literacy, and as she was talking, I was thinking about intelligence. Is there a thin line, or is the same thing, or just English difference?
No.
It's the same thing.
No. Literacy is completely
literacy is different from intelligence. So when you say you're an illiterate and you say you're not intelligent, those are two different things. I need to. What is the difference? What's the difference?
Again, literacy, like I said, is a process of learning. Intelligence is something you have. I think it's you're born with it. You're born intelligent, or you're not intelligent. You're born with it. You understand?
Okay.
That's
so what about brilliance?
Yeah, now you can talk about
these are terms
and intelligence. These are the things you can compare. You can talk together on that line.
If
you can talk on that line together.
You're likely to be brilliant.
No, I think there's. I'm trying to understand the line where you describe somebody as being literate, being intelligent, or being brilliant. Because without using the dictionary, I've always thought that being intelligent is like being vast. Talk about technology, you are there. Talk about books, you are there. Talk about hair, you are there. Talk about fashion. But then being brilliant is like, basically, if you are reading maths, all you know about is maths. The sums, everything on that field. So I need to know the difference, because I know that a lot of people are wondering the same thing.
Same thing.
Okay, so like I said, intelligence, you're born intelligent.
Okay.
You're born intelligent. It may be whatever field of discipline you have. you may have that intelligence as regard to that field.
Okay.
But you're born intelligent. Everybody is born intelligent in one thing or the other. But literacy is a process. You have to learn. You have to develop yourself. Now, even that intelligence, you have to broaden it. Because it's there, but you have to bring it out. You have to tap it. You have to sharpen it out. Okay. But it's there in you. Everybody is born intelligent. It may be in anything. You're intelligent. Every child is intelligent.
But what about the cases where they tell you that your child is gifted? Is that more of the IQ? Is that an IQ thing, or is it because of the exposure the child has had growing up? Once the child is gifted, what does that mean?
Yeah, well, when the child is gifted,
I don't know if they still stay all that gifted.
Yeah,
they still, because when I was growing up, you know, they pick them out and
yeah. So when you say child is gifted, of course it can cut across anything. Okay. It can cut across, maybe he's gifted in, he's very sharp in understanding something. Okay. So that's why you see sometimes a child will be in primary or nursery 1 and he's taken to the next class because his level of intellect is higher than his peers. Yes. So he's taken higher because of his ability to grasp things correctly or quickly. That's giftedness. Some of them are gifted in maybe painting or drawing or certain things. Every child has his peculiarity. Every child has something he's gifted at. Now, this is one of the major problems we have, especially in developing countries. Yes. We do not take the time to discover those things. So we want our children, get up and read, get up and read. Yeah. You will force a child. There's a child that no matter what you do to him, today till thy kingdom come, he will not be able to read as much as you want him to read. Yeah. But he will just sit down the way you are. I have a cousin like that. The way you are seated, I'm telling you, he will draw you perfectly as if you are breathing.
Wow.
Okay. That's giftedness. Wow. That child is just gifted. Talent. You just need to discover what is it that this child is gifted at. Okay. And help him within that sphere. Let him grow and express himself. Okay. And develop it and express himself. Okay. That's just it.
I know you work in communities where parents, because I asked about your own personal what works for you in your home and your children and everything. How do you encourage your child? How do you approach those communities, and what kind of tactics do you use to get them to send their children to school? Because I know it's your field.
Yeah. Okay. I like that question because there are lots of things you can do. As long as you can make education interesting, people will be willing to learn. Okay. Believe me, everybody wants to study. Everybody wants to learn. I have an aunt who wasn't literate at all. She couldn't read and write. Yeah. But because she found herself in a community where everybody, or in a family where everybody knows how to read and write, at that age she had over 5 children. Okay. She went back to school. And you know one funny thing? Anybody coming into the house, she's Fulani. Anybody coming, Auntie Halima, so, please come and teach me. You know, at the point everybody started running because if you just enter the house, you must teach her something. That's environment matters. Okay. So you have to create an environment. You have to make learning interesting. Like sometimes what we do with internally displaced children, we go there, just make it fun, so that the learning does not become cumbersome, and you know we don't want to. Make it fun. Letters, numbers, drawings, a lot of things, like colors, painting, anything that will make them engage them. Anything that you notice that will work for that community, work with it. You understand? So it must not be a one-way traffic. You just have to look for any other thing that must make it interesting. Storybooks, painting. You know, there are a lot of educational materials nowadays. Television. Now you go to most private schools, we have television. We do a lot of educational programs running, and you know, so all of these are things that will encourage children to study. And if you, again, I always tell people that want to run schools, make sure there's a playground. Yeah. You notice a school is just one story building. It's no place for you to play. The child is in the class from morning till night. Till the time
like in a vacuum.
He's like caged.
But Halima, isn't there a standard? I mean, I'm sure you work with government or the ministry, or you know how these things are when it comes to setting up a school. Shouldn't that be basic? Having a playground, having somewhere where the children can have their recess or break time before.
Actually, these are standard things. Any school, by government standard, yes. Anytime you want to open a school, these are things that must be there. But you know, we are Nigerians. Sometimes we always want to do the shortcuts and run it. And then that's why sometimes you see the inspectors have to go around and close down some of the schools and things like that. It happens.
Sorry, it feels like, Nikki, we are draining you, but I just have to ask. I just have to ask. When you talk about literacy, you talked about the process.
Yeah.
What standard has Nigerian government placed to check those that are trying to improve children? I mean, for instance, let's say the teachers. I know that there's a difference between education and literacy, but when you say there's a process, someone has to coach you. Am I out of order?
No, you're right.
Okay. So how do we certify that the people that are coaching our kids, that they are okay, that they are literate themselves? Because I have a story of a friend who, I know as people grow up, they change, they tend to improve themselves. But I know that this young lady was not it in school. I'm not writing her off, but academically she was not there. I don't know what her strength was, but I know she had to be held back some years, about 2 or 3 years in school. But she's a teacher right now, and it's laughable because I am scared because I feel she's not impacting. I feel she's not living. Psychologically, I still feel like if this lady wasn't that smart, how is it that she's in this? So is there any standard to check those that are trying to
actually, yes, there are. That is why you see we had the NCE. We have different things. Because if you look at the curriculum for NCA or for teachers, it's different. It's not a normal curriculum. Every course has its own standard. So yes, there is a standard for teachers. There's a standard at whatever level. Anyway, you know, NCE, lower level, there's degree. There are different things there. You need to be certified after the NCE. But again, no, I know where you're going to. I know where you're going to. I know that we do have some challenges in the educational system in Nigeria. In fact, funny enough, I was going through the educational policy and I saw it written there that one of the major challenges we have in the educational system is the quality of teachers we have.
Educators themselves.
The educators themselves. So it's a challenge and it's there written. But then we have to work with it. Government have a role to play. Individual has a role to play. You remember what I said from the beginning? I said the government have a role to educate you. You have a role to make yourself literate. Yes. Which means you have to develop yourself by the day. And then about the lady you mentioned, it may be possible that at that time she may be going through some challenges. I have worked with children or some people that from the beginning they look like dullards, like nothing can happen. But when they had an opportunity and they had their breakthrough, I'm telling you, you'll be surprised at what they turned out to be. So sometimes background, environment, and a lot of other issues play out on people that at that point she may be having and by the way, I do have another class friend in the university who did her university till I finished my master's. She was still doing her first degree, but she wasn't a dullard. She was just having issues. So these are all issues we need to look at. Don't look at it from just the first impression you have. There might be things behind the scene that you don't know. So it doesn't mean she's dullard or anything.
So don't you think it is laughable that the saga in Kaduna State, you know, where the governor had to make teachers take exams that they were giving to the students, most of them failed. I mean, the percentage of people that failed their exams versus the percentage of people that made their exams, I don't know, your base, for me, I don't know, how do we correct this? Because I know that the teachers went back to, you know, protest, they want their jobs back. It was all over the social media, it was all over the news, and I know the governor himself is trying his best to do what he thinks is best for the children. These teachers are doing their best to make sure they have jobs that put food on their table. So how do we break this standard?
See, the problem is just one. The problem is just one.
Okay.
What? Putting square pegs in round holes.
I don't understand that.
Most of the times, I'm going. Most of the times, we finish school. The most available job, you just jump at it.
Okay.
It may not be where you're supposed to be or where you should be.
That's what is available.
One. That's what is available. And two, another problem we have is that because I'm a director, I'm a DG somewhere, I can employ everybody in my village to work there. Irrespective of whether you have the requisite certification or not. Thirdly, we have issues of there are a lot of fraudulent practices. Somebody can use somebody's certificate. I've heard about it.
Yes,
somebody
ghost
uses
workers.
somebody's certificate to get a job, and you can't defend it. You understand? So these are issues. There are issues that are there. But always I say one thing to myself. Before I start pointing accusation fingers on whether the government, we need to start from ourselves.
Yes.
Okay. I need a job. I'm desperate. Yes, I have a family to run. I have siblings. I have whoever to need. But must I work here? Okay, what quality am I bringing here? So yeah, there are challenges, and we are all responsible for it, not just the government. Now that the saga is out, everybody is now blaming the governor is wicked and things like that. But we are all part of the circle.
Yeah, if there are regulations, you know, people.
There have been there are regulations.
Yeah, maybe.
But the problem is that somebody overlooks the regulations.
Stand their ground very well. So you applying, you know that if you are not fit for this job, you don't get it. If you are not going to be efficient,
and
or
I think
effective, you don't get it.
We need to reduce this issue. We need to start really concentrating on other
Because
things apart from this education thing.
I mean, the reason
how
why
do you deliver when you are not fit for a particular task? How do you deliver?
We're talking about literacy, so it's okay that we talk about, we try to exhaust this topic as much as we can, because I'm sorry that you're the only person here that is going to answer my question, but I have questions for you. I'm sorry. I know you're not the governor, I know you're not the government, but you are going to try to answer my question, because I am going to ask this based on what people are thinking at home. So I'm thinking strange. I want to know, what do you think is the way forward? Because personally, if I were to be the governor of a state or somebody, I know that Nigeria runs a goodwill economy. What I mean by this is, if you have a job, you are going to be sustaining us if you are in your family.
Yes, of course.
So sometimes you can take a shady job just so that you can sustain us. I know that that is what we are, you know, we are operating on. But what do you think is the punishment? What do you think is the repercussion for this? Because it is unfair for us to have people who are not educated educate our kids. So we are grooming them to be frauds from the beginning. It is fraudulent. It is wrong. So what do we do? Because I really need to know the way forward.
I think we need to start from the basis. Before you become a teacher, you must go through the basis yourself. What are the qualifications you have that makes you a teacher? That's one. And two, I think we need to reduce this emphasis on everybody must go to school and get a government job. People can do other things, for God's sake. Let the environment be conducive for people to enter into different things, to do different things. Then not everybody will be rushing to be a teacher. And by the way, a lot of reason why we have a lot of unqualified teachers is because that's the only job they think they can get easily available. Government job. Everybody wants to finish work and rush to government coffers. Everybody wants a government job. But we have to go back to the basis. Let the environment be conducive. What is your area of strength? What is it that you love to doing? Go there, make a living out of it, and we don't all have to be dependent on one civil servant in the entire family. We kill the person before his time.
You know what? I have a question. I have a question on behalf of mothers watching conversations right now. Do I have a right to go to a school? I want to enroll my children. I remember I said I have 3-year-old twins. I want to move them into a new school. Do I have a right as a mother to ask for the qualifications of the teachers?
Absolutely.
I can ask for that?
Absolutely, yes. And
there's no privacy issue. I'm not infringing on anyone's privacy by asking for their qualifications.
That's the life of your children.
Because mothers don't know that. They don't know that they can walk into the school and ask that, who are the people teaching my children?
A
lot of people don't know that.
You see the saga that happened in Edo State, where this governor, what's his name, Oshimole, had to go to school, and there was a video where he asked this teacher to read, and she was unable to read and all that. If I walk into a school and that happens, oh God, there's going to be issues. I'm going to have a breakdown, because I cannot believe that the teacher who I trust my kids' future cannot read. So this thing is emotional. It's deep for me, because I know that there are so many people out there, so many adults who are illiterate because of the foundation they got. And this is because the government failed to employ people who are capable. So there is no correction. This error has already been done.
Yeah,
What?
I think
It is too deep. What?
Gone are the days where governments, you give appointments and relax and sit back.
Okay.
Now there are governing boards to assess, are these people really doing what they are supposed to do? You see they call them this school, then when they are coming, inspectors. Yeah.
Inspectors.
They come and you see them patching up, trying to get their certificate. Some of them don't even have SSC certificate. They rush back to their school just to get it. So I think governments are trying to sit up when it comes to that, because it's about the product, how well, not how far.
Sorry, when you talk about people not having SSC, how factual is this statement? Because I don't understand. What do you really mean?
See, gone are the days when all these things are not in place.
Okay.
You understand? Like, they just want to get a job. Okay, you have a primary school certificate. You can still manage to teach with that.
Okay. Yeah, that was in those days.
That was in those days. Now you have to have
now.
NCE.
Yeah.
In fact, even if you have a university degree,
yes,
if you must teach, there is a law that you must have a teaching certification.
Okay.
You must have a teaching certificate.
So that to learn.
So if you're coming at whatever level, whether at the primary, secondary, even at the tertiary institution, you want to come as a lecturer, you must have the basis, which is educational certification.
Yes,
it's there.
Yes.
Okay. It's there. All of these things is there. Now I wanted to just interject. You were asking, where do we start? It all starts from us, the parents. It all starts from us. See, a society gets the leadership it deserves.
Okay.
These people don't come from outer space. These leaders don't come from outer space. They came from us. We are part and parcel of the society. So let's start from where we are. As a child, as a mother, as a parent, what are you doing about your children's education? Some people send their children to school. They don't even bother to ask, what have you learned today? In those days, I remember my mom, coming back from school, you have to make sure all the pages in your book is intact. Your pencil is intact. If you lost your pen, make sure you find it before you come home. If you tear a piece of paper, you're on your own. No. In fact, you dare not think about it. Because my mom goes through page by page and asks you a question. How come you feel this one? What's the problem? Didn't you understand it? Why didn't you ask question? Do we do that now? We rarely do it. So we expect magic to happen. And these are the same people, when they grow up, nobody saw them through, nobody guided them through. Tomorrow they become teachers. So nobody told them what to do. When they get there, they find their way. In fact, you see a lot of our youths today. They are groveling. They are just wallowing in darkness. And we don't have role models, by the way. We don't have people they look up to. We don't have mentors. Abroad, if you go, there are people that are specific for certain things. They mentor you for specific areas. It's there.
So that you can be skilled in that particular area.
We don't have
I'm just thinking this era of androids now, when you just, you see kids where they are in the washroom, they are in the kitchen, they go about with their phones. They just, okay, what's happening? It's just more like fun. In fact, there are these apps you can study on I don't think they surf through that. They only want to play the games, want to tweet, want to follow.
Well, again, that's another challenge altogether.
The funny thing,
that has nothing. That does not increase your literate level.
It does not.
It doesn't.
Literacy level does not depend on your usage of social media. It doesn't, because I know that a
lot of time is devoted to doing that because it's fun. Because you need time to study, you need time to read. You need to read vast enormously.
What you don't understand is, when you go to the rural areas, we have 36 states in Nigeria. When you go to the villages where you have kids going to school barefoot, without school bags, they don't have access to social media. They don't have access to internet. I don't even understand.
I do.
Basically, they have access to radio, so they can listen to us, or they can, see what we are doing, because NTA is like everywhere. But even in the village where there is no access to internet, how do we ensure that our kids are getting the best?
It's so
do you understand what I'm trying to say? Because internet, okay, when you come to a place like Abuja, Lagos, where you have the UPs, the cities, everybody has access to internet. When you go to the first world, the second world, everybody. But when you go to the villages,
not everybody, mind you. Even in Abuja, not everybody.
Exactly.
The issue of literacy, when we are looking at it from the rural angle, some still live in urban centers, and yet they are still, you can't term them as being literate. just because they focus attention, they devote their attention to some other things.
So I don't know, when I was growing up, we did a bit of everything, business studies and integrated science. When I eventually ended up in school in Ghana, I realized that their secondary school system back then, a lot of them didn't do business classes. All the science students with me didn't know much about commerce and economics and things like that, because there was science all through. But for here, it's so much wider. But is that a good thing? Are we overloading our kids with? Is it too much information for kids?
I don't think it's too much.
It's not.
Because when you go to other more developed society or other different developing society, you discover that they've gone far.
Yes. Halima,
we just have to catch up.
Sometimes the kind of homework that my 3-year-olds come home with, I'm like, how am I supposed to?
Well, you have to go to their textbook to help them with their homework.
I go back to the teachers, I'm like, why are they getting this? They're like, Madam, we will not give your children stuff they don't already know how to do. They know how to do it, trust me.
And Nika, don't be surprised, they will cope. Nika, they will
Are they coping or not?
Yes, they are, but I just feel it.
You're just having the mother sentiment.
My mother hormones are kicking in, Abby.
Nika, maybe you want to start comparing to the period, your own
my
period,
own time.
Your own time.
I guess
These kids, as soon as they give birth to them now, they are picking, their eyes are widely opened, and you know, their ears are moving around already. That the IQ is so superb.
I still think there are times, like in those days, even now we're still complaining that you are talking about the curriculum seems to be overloaded. But then there are certain things that at the point, I remember in secondary school there was a time they stopped history, which is not really right. And I'm glad that the Minister of Education now has brought it back. Because
I didn't realize they'd removed history.
They removed history.
Nigerian history.
I
didn't know that.
So people crowd and all.
I can see
the history of Lagos.
I'm a historian by profession, actually, by training. You understand? So when you remove the history subject like history, excuse me, where people that don't know their history, what exactly are
let's say people that don't know where they are coming from. How do they want to package where they are heading?
There are a lot of issues. So I don't think this information is being overloaded. I think it's the standard, the situation we found ourselves. We have to catch up. We really need to work hard because, again, even the curriculum needs to be beefed up. That's why I see a lot of people sending their children to private schools, foreign schools, especially private schools that do British and American curriculum and stuff like that, because they feel this one does not give you an edge, especially in a global world. Now we're in a global world. Children have to compete with others from more developed societies. So if you don't beef it up, there are issues. So sometimes we look at these children as if the information is being overloaded. No, it's actually not. I think it's being graded by their age. And again, if you go to schools, kindergarten and other schools like levels, you discover that from that class they study the child. If the child is better than most of his mates or peers, he's moved to the next class. So some of these things they're given by their level of understanding. I remember my daughter, my last daughter too. There was a time I was really complaining, but she would tell me, "Mommy, I can do it." By the way, I don't know maths. But that girl is just like, don't worry. She'll look at him, "Mommy, I don't understand this." I'll look at it and say, "I don't really know. Wait for your father." Later she'll come and say, "Mommy, I can do it. I should do it. I'll solve it." So sometimes we just look at it, we're looking at it from that instinct, that motherly instinct and things like we feel they've been overburdened. But I don't think so.
Halima, what are your thoughts on this primary 5, primary 6, do primary 6 or do primary 5 and go to secondary school issue? I know for some parents are like, no, I never did primary 6, my child must not do primary 6, and then you fly the child from primary 5 or primary 4. I've heard of primary 4 going straight to secondary school. What are your thoughts on the issue?
Well, you know, it's a current structure of education we have, the 6-3-3-4. So that is where we have that issue. Students are supposed to do 6 years in primary school, 3 years at the junior level, secondary school, and 3 years at the senior level, and 4 years in the university. So it's the structure, that's the educational structure we're running at the moment. Now, as a parent, you know, you can't enforce it on somebody. If somebody feels his child is good and has reached a certain level, some of them want to move their children. But again,
from university,
there's also the danger in it. Because again, sometimes we push these children when they are, because apart from their their intellectual understanding. We also need to know their emotional stability.
You have to.
So sometimes we're in a hurry because we want our children to achieve certain things at certain age. We want to brag about it, that my child finished university at 16 or 18. We want to brag about it. We forget the emotional stability. And mind you, studies have shown that a lot of these children nowadays commit suicide. Depression and all that.
Because
we've pushed them too much.
You push them above their limits.
We've taken them, they have not reached the stage of that exposure, we've taken them to that exposure. A child that is not ready to go to university, you've sent him to university. And now he has to cope with peers, he has to cope with friends, he has to cope. He doesn't know all of this, or she doesn't know all of this. And now she is faced with it. And before she realized, everything is loaded, overloaded.
It's depressing.
It's depressing. And the next thing, consideration. Suicide and things like that.
What she's saying, I am like a living example, because I know I got into my first university at 16.
Okay.
And I was really excited to go, but I didn't know that university is not like secondary school where somebody has to tell you to do everything. So I go, and the first semester, and I know I'm a smart child, but I know I was losing it. I couldn't fit into the society. I wasn't ready. I didn't have the emotional stability, wasn't there. I found everything fancy. Everything was fine to me.
Yes.
I was interested in all the clothes and all that. But what I did for myself was, at the end of the first year, by myself alone, I carried my bags and I left. And I told my dad I am not going back to university. I'm not ready for university.
Really?
Yes, I did that. Because, Nika, I was wild. You see, Nika, you can't speak to me without me talking 3 back. Like, I was like this. And I'm like, no. It was too much. The freedom was too much. I took my bags and I left. And my dad had to make me stay back home 2 years.
2 years?
Yes, I made that sacrifice. I went to Lagos for 1 year, stayed there. I learned how to sew. I learned hair braiding. I just learned how to control myself.
That's a talent.
But when I went back to university for the second time, before 3rd year, everybody knew I came here. I did not come here to play.
Yeah,
so you understand? I was ready for it. I was ready for the challenges. In fact, I had in my 3rd year, I had a guy come to ask me out, and I looked at him and I told him, I said, you know, on a good day, you can't see me on the road and talk to me, right? Yes, I was that bold. So I knew my level. I knew my place. I knew what I wanted. So I knew everything by then, and I was ready to face life.
You know what? Just how many dads, how many fathers out there are ready to do what your dad did?
Not a lot.
Keep your child home for 2 years?
Not a lot.
But when people are asking, where is she and everything, you don't know what to say because she's home.
It still stems back to the issue we are discussing. Her
I
dad
couldn't. I was
an
depressed.
educated person. He was able to fix it. Like,
this is the first time I've heard anything even similar to this.
You see, when I'm privileged to have worked in the university system for a little time.
Okay.
And I know that a lot of the young girls that had issues were those girls that came at the age of 16, 15. They had issues, and at a point they broke down. And I'm glad that I started this my NGO thing early enough, because I became like somebody that could run. Initially, when you're talking to them, they were feeling like they're on top. But by the time they started getting to 2nd year, it was getting tougher. They didn't know what to do. Everything is now downing on them. They started running. Auntie, you could read on their faces that there is a problem.
Wow.
You could. And funny enough, some of us as teachers, we just come do the thing in class and we go. We don't care about the emotions. Nobody cares. So very few teachers take the time to really look at what exactly is happening in the life of this person. Very few. I remember one of them. I will never forget that particular lady. She's from Borno State. I still know her. I don't want to call her name because I don't know where she is.
Okay.
But I remember when she first came to school, she was feeling on top of the world. Very beautiful girl, after all, and well curved. I think God took his time to do that extra. You know. And at that time, because all the guys were floating over her and she was feeling, I would tell her, be careful, be careful, be careful. But by the time she was about to enter her 3rd year, she broke down.
Exactly.
She came looking for me at that time, and I was like, Auntie, I don't know.
They always break down.
Everything.
They always break down.
While we are in a hurry to give our children whatever thing we think is the best for them, please, let's look at their emotional stability. It's more important now than any other thing. You give children the best of education, but you don't give them the basis, which is the emotion, the ability to stand, the boldness. In fact, but they're not bold. They don't even know their left from right. You spoon feed them from primary school. That reminds me, you see parents jumping fences to go and help their children.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
I actually saw the pictures. I actually saw the pictures. Yes, it was crazy.
So now we want to blame the government for everything. Well, we are also responsible. So now, by the time you finish helping them, spoon feeding them from primary school, secondary school, now they're in the university, they're all alone. What happens? So we have to all look at all of this. It's a complete circle. Everything, one turn affects the other. We have to be careful what we do with the children, what we do with them from primary school. Sometimes we begin to teach our children, you are the best, you are better than every other person. That's a wrong message you're sending.
Making them to be competitive at a very young stage,
confidence building? Isn't that supposed to be a confidence boost?
No.
I'm just asking. I'm just being practical here.
It's good to boost the confidence of your child, but please don't compare him with anybody. Encourage him to be the best.
Not to put the other person
Encourage the child
down,
to be the best he should be, but not to compare him with somebody else. It's not right.
But then,
and then sometimes we go to schools, even at primary school, we begin to teach them politics, we begin to teach a lot of things. You know, I heard recently in one PTA meeting we went that a student was caught in malpractice in primary school.
What?
No. A primary school student. Mind you, it's a private school I'm talking about. I'm not talking about a government school.
Because I would have loved to say government school. We have
6
high
to
age
10
in secondary school.
So now this is where you ask the question: who taught that child?
That's why I was
mother, because I'm sure the father didn't have time.
The mother, mothers are not.
Speaking of time, you mentioned your mom taking time out to go through books and everything. I just wonder, because sometimes I get home from work and I'm really tired. And I'm like, how come they had energy to do that back then, and now I'm struggling. I'm struggling to start, let's go through the books. Let me teach you, let me read to you before. What has changed? Why are we more tired now than we were back then? I'm sorry, this sounds like that, but I
think the jobs have changed.
That is it. You spend more time working
now.
You spend more time working devoted to your job than
I think. Because the parents had so much more time. The mothers were calmer. Now mothers are snappy and
you see, Nikki,
and tired.
The truth of the matter is that this is what has changed.
What?
Our taste has changed.
Yes.
We're crazy about fancy things. We're crazy about luxury, the me thing. The society has changed. It's no longer like before. In fact, before, you don't only take care of your own children, you take care of the entire children within the community.
Compound, your compound especially.
But now, it's me, myself, and me. And I want to have my me time. I want to, even the children sometimes are, please, you shut yourself. I do that too. I'm guilty. Sorry. I am guilty. Right. You shut yourself in your room and you, please do whatever you need to do. I am tired. Sometimes you get back, because again, we're still looking for money to take care of the same children.
The same children, yes.
Now, I think our major problem is sometimes we put the
carts before the bags.
Before the horse. This is where we are missing it now. We are so much crazy about getting the money to give them the best education. We forget that when you get all the money and you don't give them the right morals, the right standing, for them to be able to build their own personal principles that they will operate upon as they grow. Every other thing you've done is amounted to zero. It's nothing. Because it helps, it takes them nowhere. So that's why we have emotional bankruptcy, we have character bankruptcy, because nobody was there to tell these children, this is this and this, don't do that. You see children now, somebody is talking, you see our children now, they just, in the middle of conversation, adults are conversing, they just bump in and start talking. Nobody talks to them, but these are wrong. If you don't teach these children the right thing from the onset.
From the onset, yes.
They grow with it, and they will become your governors tomorrow, your presidents tomorrow, and don't complain. And that is why I always tell myself one thing. Before I point any finger at anybody, where have I gone wrong? Have I done everything that is within my sphere?
To ensure
that what is my responsibility has been done? before I can look up to you. Nike,
Halima,
do your own.
There's this say that maturity doesn't come by age, but by acceptance of responsibility. You know, sometimes you might see a child of 15-year-old and a child of 25 reasoning alike, reasoning the same way. I don't know if you've if you've noticed that. You understand? So still stand back to the issue of you know, going or leaving one institution for the other, like the primary level to the secondary level. Sometimes the child could be like 8 years old, and you can't even compare the level of understanding of IQ with that of 13 or 14. So should we say, okay, because the child is still, you know, low in age, we should make sure the child, you know, finishes or clocks about 10, 11, 12, and before proceeding.
I think there was a Nigerian that became a professor at tender age some years back.
Yes, when you have a baby that is good to go at 7, you understand that I feel he or she is matured.
How do you feel the maturity?
You see, this is children. I have 5-year-old cousins, nephews, 4 years old. I can really say, I live with them. I've been with them. I know what they are good at.
When you're in the educational system, your judgment is different from when you are in the other side of life.
Yes.
I am in the educational system, and I will tell you what we do. If your child seems to be above his peers, we have what we call differentiation in the learning. So we make the teacher, your own program will be different from what the other people are learning. But we insist that you go according to your peers, because when you're in class with your peers, you don't only learn education, you learn character, you develop patience, how to tolerate people. And if you put a 3-year-old in the same class with a 5-year-old, simply because the person is smart or intelligent, according to you, you may be dragging that child back, because the character in learning, you have to, your character has to go hand in hand.
But do you believe that there are some kids that,
if you
have it all round?
Situation, if you're in a situation where you think your child is very smart, encourage the child to do differentiation in learning. If these other kids are doing 1 + 1, let the child do 1 × 1 or 1 × 2.
Okay, you mean that whose responsibility is that? Is it the school? Is it the
schools? Everybody's responsible.
Everybody's
responsible. No, to do the differentiation. You know, she's talking about differentiation in class.
You have to speak to your teachers, your kids' teacher. You always, it is your responsibility.
Yes, actually, you do.
But you don't just skip a child from class 3 to 5 simply because you think. Because you are thinking, you are not sure.
Even sometimes the teachers do, you know, suggest it to the parents.
That's what I said. You just have to speak.
Really?
Yes.
No, not suggesting.
There used to be one promotion, like they gave
double promotion.
I remember.
Because when this child ends up doing double promotion, and ends up in the university as an amateur, depression sets in. You don't know what it is for you to be in a class where you have adults and you are a child.
The mind is not built.
And your mind is not built, and you do not understand what the society has to offer. You don't know what it means when you feel, oh, you are up to the age of having a boyfriend, excuse my language, and one actually comes, but you don't know if this person is right for me or not. So you start changing from one guy to the other simply because the adults in your class are changing, and you think it is okay. Body count is going. Your low self-esteem is setting in. You're becoming depressed, and that is because your parents don't allow you to grow with your peers. So it is not. I feel it's not right. I wouldn't let my kids go through that.
And I understand that there's that overwhelming need for parents to have that, you know, bragging rights. You know, my child entered school at this year, at this age, and all that. Or my child is gifted. They gave my child double promotion. There's just something about wanting to brag about your child's educational. Well, we're almost out of time, but I don't know if Halima, you just give us a summary for people who are just joining conversations on literacy, especially for things that parents can do with their children right now to aid literacy, to improve their literacy.
I think you said something that just made me shiver. This bragging right, let us not do it at the expense of our children.
Exactly.
Whatever you need to do, please put your child first. Put his emotion first. Put his stability first. Think about his future. Because again, we give them everything. We think that we may not be there for them forever. So prepare them to stand on their own. Give them the right to learn. but to learn the right things. Watch over what they do when you're not there and when you're there. That's why a lot of teachers, I'm not saying you should straitjacket your children, but at least be there for them. And it's very important that you become a friend to your child. At a certain age, a child needs a father or a mother. At a certain age, the child needs a friend. And at a certain age, he needs a mentor. So you must know when to switch. When to quickly switch.
Quickly.
Don't wait. Don't continue being a father. Sit down. I am the father. Your child will walk out on you. You must know when to switch and when to create the balance. These are all important.
So
now, education is important. See, don't just send your children to school. Don't go looking for money because you want to pay school fees. Look for money, but please sit down with them and go through the process with them. Hold their hands. Every child needs a mentor. Every child needs somebody he can look up to and be proud of. And if you're not literate enough, make yourself literate. My children, when I was about leaving this morning, my daughter woke up and said, "Mommy, I wrote a poem." And I said, "Okay, can I read it for you?" I said, "Please do." And she read, and I said, "That's a very good one. Did you copy it from a book?" She said, "No." I said, "Are you sure you did it yourself?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Okay, when I come back, we will type it. And we will store it, we'll continue gathering it until we have a book." You know, so these are ways we encourage the children. Be a part of their growing up process. Be a part of their learning process. Be a part of their emotional process. Be a part of everything. And again, Nigerian parents, please learn to tell your children you love them. If you don't say it at home, they will hear it outside. And that can destroy their life.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Halima, Lima, and Obong for joining us. Our topic today in the conversation room, literacy in children and in adults. What are your thoughts on the issue? Let's hear from you from our social media handles available on the screen right now. My name is Nike, signing out on behalf of all the ladies in the conversation room. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye.
Bye.